A stormy highway in Ohio. Aisha, a black mechanic, stops to assist a stranded driver. But instead of gratitude, she faces harsh racism until a stunning revelation turns the tables, exposing bias and delivering justice in a powerful way. A fierce storm battered Highway 71 in Ohio, the kind of evening where the world seemed to shrink to the sound of windshield wipers slicing through the downpour. Aisha Thompson, a 38-year-old black woman with a talent for fixing anything mechanical, was driving home after a grueling day at her auto repair shop in Columbus. Her weathered pickup truck, loaded with tools and smelling faintly of motor oil, was her haven, a symbol of years of perseverance and determination. She'd grown up in a tough Chicago neighborhood, where opportunities were scarce and survival demanded quick learning. At 14, Aisha taught herself to repair engines, working on neighbors' cars for spare change, her small hands mastering rusty machinery while others her age played outside. She'd spend hours in her family's cramped garage, studying borrowed manuals by the light of a flickering bulb, her fingers stained with ink as she absorbed every detail. Those early days were far from easy. Aisha's mother, a single parent juggling jobs as a cleaner and cashier, struggled to make ends meet. Some nights, Aisha fell asleep hungry, dreaming of a future beyond their hardships. But her mother's strength inspired her to improve even though, despite exhaustion, she'd smile and say, "You'll make it big, baby. Don't let anyone stop you." That encouragement drove Aisha forward. By 20, she'd moved to Columbus, starting at a local garage. The owner, Mr. Henderson, recognized her skill, but not everyone was welcoming. Customers often left when they saw her, muttering doubts about a black woman's ability to fix their cars. Aisha buried the pain, proving her worth with every flawless repair, until she finally opened Thompson Auto Solutions, a small business that became her greatest achievement. Her truck, a 1998 Ford she'd rebuilt herself, bore the marks of her journey. Scratched dashboard, faded seats, each imperfection a story of late nights and hard-earned success. That evening, Aisha was exhausted, her body aching from hours spent on a tricky transmission job. All she wanted was to get home, warm up some leftovers, and rest. But as she navigated a curve, her headlights caught a stalled BMW on the shoulder, its hazard lights flickering weakly in the tempest. A white woman in her late 50s stood beside it, clutching a designer umbrella, her face contorted with irritation as the deluge soaked her cream-colored coat. Aisha's instincts took over. She couldn't leave anyone stranded in such conditions. She pulled over, her tires crunching on gravel, and grabbed her toolkit, stepping into the torrent, the icy water seeping through her jacket as she approached. "Hey, need some help?" she called, her voice kind despite the cold, her breath visible in the damp air. The woman, Linda Harper, turned abruptly, her gaze narrowing as she assessed Aisha. A black woman in worn overalls, braided hair tucked under a cap, hands marked by grease, a testament to her trade. Linda's lips twisted into a sneer, her expression shifting to disdain, as if Aisha's presence was an insult. "I don't need your kind of help," she snapped, her voice sharp with contempt, each word a deliberate jab at Aisha's dignity. "I've called roadside assistance, they'll send someone. Capable." The word struck like a blow, its meaning clear, slicing through the storm's roar. Aisha froze, the chill of the water on her skin nothing compared to the ache in her chest as she felt the bitter weight of discrimination. A wound she knew all too well. Her mind flashed to a moment years ago at her first job when a customer had demanded a real mechanic, refusing to trust her skills. The shame had lingered, a scar on her confidence, yet Aisha refused to retreat. She'd faced such bias her entire life, doors closed, chances denied, and had learned to stand firm. "I'm a mechanic," she said calmly, holding up her toolkit, her tone steady despite the pain swelling inside. "I can fix your car faster than any crew in this weather." Linda scoffed, arms crossed tightly, her umbrella tilting in the wind, her blonde hair clinging to her face. "I'll wait. Someone like you shouldn't touch a car like this," she said, her voice dripping with scorn, each syllable meant to diminish Aisha, to mark her as unworthy. Aisha's throat tightened, the words cutting deep, a fresh wave of anguish washing over her. She noticed the BMW's flat tire, a quick fix, barely 10 minutes of work. Breathing deeply, she tried to stay composed, her grip on the toolkit firm. "Ma'am, you're far from help out here," she said, her voice polite but resolute. "I just want to assist." Linda's reply was a frigid glare, followed by a muttered, "Keep your distance," her tone venomous, meant to push Aisha away like she was less than human. The dismissal hurt, a sharp pang that echoed past experiences. Clients abandoning her shop upon seeing her, neighbors doubting her abilities. Yet Aisha clung to her belief in doing what's right, hoping her actions might one day shift perspectives. As she turned to leave, her boots splashing through puddles, a pickup truck slowed nearby. Its driver, a young white man named Ethan, watched with a furrowed brow, sensing the tension as he gripped the steering wheel, his gaze shifting between the two women. Aisha's hands shook as she headed back to her truck, a storm of anger and sorrow brewing within her. She'd endured such slights too often, each one a reminder of the obstacles she'd battled her whole life. But they never became easier to bear. The cold seeped through her clothes, but the deeper chill came from being devalued, dismissed for something she couldn't change. Her mind replayed Linda's sneer, the way she'd spat out "your kind" like it was an insult, a label meant to diminish. It brought back memories of her childhood, classmates who'd taunted her for being different, teachers who'd overlooked her potential, assuming she'd never rise above her circumstances. Yet Aisha had always defied those doubts, her resolve a flame that burned brighter with every challenge. As she reached for her door handle, Ethan, the young man in the pickup, lowered his window, his expression filled with concern, his brown eyes warm with empathy. "You okay?" he asked, his voice sincere, cutting through the tempest like a beacon. Aisha managed a faint smile, her lips trembling as she masked her pain. "Yeah, just another day," she replied, her tone heavy with exhaustion, the burden of the moment weighing on her. Ethan glanced at Linda, who paced beside her BMW, yelling into her phone about the delay, her voice shrill and commanding, her umbrella swaying with each furious step. "She had no right to say that," Ethan said quietly, his jaw clenching as he observed Linda's entitled demeanor, the way she acted as if the world should bend to her will. "I'm Ethan, by the way. I work at the diner up the road," he added, his tone softening as he offered Aisha a nod of recognition. Aisha nodded back, a spark of gratitude easing her ache, his empathy a small comfort in the midst of her struggle. "Aisha, I run a repair shop in Columbus," she said, her voice warming slightly, her posture relaxing as she shared her truth. Ethan's face lit up with admiration, a genuine smile spreading across his features. "A mechanic? That's incredible." "Don't let her bring you down," he said, his words a lifeline, a reminder that not everyone saw her through the lens of bias. For the first time since stopping, Aisha felt acknowledged, her skills and humanity recognized by someone free of Linda's prejudices. Ethan's support stirred a memory from Aisha's early days in Columbus, when she'd worked under Mr. Henderson at the garage. A regular customer, an older black man named Mr. Carter, had seen her struggling with a tough repair one evening. He'd stayed late, bringing her coffee and sharing tales of his own struggles as a truck driver in the 70s, facing discrimination at every turn. "We've got to lift each other up," he'd said, his voice gruff but warm, his eyes kind. That moment had sustained Aisha through her toughest days, a reminder that there were allies out there, people who understood her fight. Ethan's words now echoed that same spirit, a quiet affirmation that she wasn't alone, even on this desolate highway in the midst of a storm. But the tension was about to escalate, the situation growing uglier than Aisha had expected. Linda, still on her phone, noticed Ethan speaking with Aisha, her sharp eyes catching the interaction like a predator sensing weakness. She strode over, her high heels clicking on the wet pavement, her voice cutting through the wind with a harsh edge. "Are you with roadside assistance?" she demanded, her gaze piercing Ethan, her impatience evident in her rigid posture. Ethan shook his head, his demeanor calm but unwavering, his hands steady on the wheel as he met her stare. "No, ma'am, I just stopped to see if you needed help," he said, his voice firm, refusing to be cowed by her attitude. Linda's eyes flicked to Aisha, her tone turning vicious, her words sharp enough to wound. "Then why are you talking to her? She's probably why no one's here, wasting everyone's time with her." "Nonsense," she snapped, her accusation slicing through the air, a deliberate attempt to degrade Aisha further. Aisha's fists tightened, her heart pounding with a mix of fury and shame, but she held her tongue, knowing any retort would only fuel Linda's bias, though the urge to speak burned fiercely within her. Ethan's expression darkened, his voice steady but laced with defiance, his eyes narrowing as he stood his ground. "She offered to fix your car and you refused. That's your choice," he said, his words a clear rebuke of Linda's arrogance, a refusal to let her distortions go unchallenged. Linda's voice rose, her face flushing with indignation. "I don't need an unfit person touching my BMW. I'm waiting for professionals, not amateurs," she retorted, her words heavy with disdain, each one echoing the biases Aisha had spent her life overcoming. The insult struck hard, a fresh wave of pain coursing through her, a reminder of the countless times she'd been judged not for her abilities but for her appearance. Her mind drifted to a recent incident, a glowing online review for her shop overshadowed by a cruel comment. "She's probably just a token hire," the memory stung, and Linda's words now amplified that hurt, a cruel reminder of a world that often refused to see her value. The exchange drew the attention of another driver, a middle-aged black woman named Marla, who pulled over to investigate, her headlights casting a faint glow through the gloom. Marla, a nurse returning from a long shift at the hospital, stepped out of her car, her movements quick and purposeful as she adjusted her raincoat. She'd seen enough in her career to recognize trouble. Patients who'd dismissed her expertise, coworkers who'd dismissed her expertise. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice calm but firm, her eyes darting between Aisha and Linda, seeking clarity. Aisha explained softly, her tone steady despite the ache in her chest, her hands still clenched. "I offered to help with her car, but she doesn't want me to." "Because of my race?" she said, the admission bitter on her tongue, a painful acknowledgement of her reality. Marla's expression softened, her own experiences with bias flooding back, a patient who'd once refused her care saying, "I don't trust black nurses." "That's not right," Marla whispered, placing a comforting hand on Aisha's shoulder, her touch a quiet gesture of unity, a reminder that Aisha wasn't alone. The small act warmed Aisha, a faint glimmer of hope in the darkness, a sign that others shared her struggle and stood with her. The storm outside grew fiercer, rain hammering the pavement as the confrontation on the highway reached a boiling point. Linda's patience shattered, her frustration erupting as she charged toward Aisha, her heels splashing through puddles, her voice sharp and grating. "You're still here? I told you to leave. You're making me uncomfortable," she barked, her tone a mix of anger and superiority, as if Aisha's presence alone was a personal offense. Aisha's gaze hardened, her composure fraying after enduring Linda's relentless hostility. She planted her feet firmly, toolkit in hand, her voice steady but edged with defiance. "I'm on a public highway, ma'am. I have every right to be here," she said, her words a clear stand for her dignity, a refusal to be erased by prejudice. Linda's face turned a deep red, her fury exploding as she stepped closer, her umbrella shaking in her grip. "People like you don't belong here. You're probably waiting to steal something," she accused, her voice venomous, each word a cruel attempt to strip Aisha of her humanity. The accusation struck Aisha like a dagger, her chest tightening as memories of past injustices flooded back. She recalled a day at 15, walking into a corner store in her Chicago neighborhood to buy a soda, only to be trailed by the clerk, his eyes narrowing as he muttered, "I know your type." She'd left empty-handed, her face burning with shame, the soda can still on the shelf as she vowed to rise above such assumptions. Now, Linda's words reopened that scar, the pain as sharp as ever, a bitter reminder of how often she'd been judged for her skin rather than her character. Yet beneath the anguish, a fire sparked. Aisha was done letting others define her worth, done staying silent in the face of such malice. Her hands tightened around the toolkit, her jaw set, but she kept her calm, knowing that lashing out would only feed Linda's narrative. Ethan, who had been watching the scene with growing unease, stepped forward, his voice firm and unyielding. "That's enough. She's done nothing wrong," he said, his tone a protective shield, his stance a barrier between Aisha and Linda's wrath. His support was a lifeline, a reminder that not everyone saw her through a lens of bias. Marla, standing nearby, nodded in agreement, her face set with determination as she pulled out her phone, her movements precise. "I'm recording this," she declared, her voice calm but resolute, a nurse's steady hand in a crisis. "You can't just throw around claims like that." Linda's eyes widened at the phone, a flash of unease crossing her features. But her defiance quickly returned. "Go ahead, record me. I'm not the one out of place here," she snapped, her confidence unshaken, her pride blinding her to the consequences of her actions. Marla's choice to record changed the atmosphere, adding a layer of accountability that Linda couldn't ignore. Aisha felt a surge of optimism, a belief that this moment could be a turning point, that the truth might finally be seen. She glanced at Marla, their shared understanding a silent bond, two women who had endured similar struggles, now united in their stand against injustice. That connection fueled Aisha's determination, giving her the strength to face the next challenge head-on. The standoff reached its peak when a tow truck pulled up, its headlights slicing through the downpour as it came to a stop. The driver, a gruff white man named Carl, stepped out, his heavy boots hitting the ground as he surveyed the scene. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 50s, his face etched with lines from years on the road, his expression stern but impartial. As he approached, he caught the tail end of Linda's outburst, her accusing finger pointed at Aisha, her voice rising in a dramatic plea. "This woman's been harassing me, she won't leave me alone," she cried, her tone a calculated attempt to cast herself as the victim. Aisha's stomach dropped, a wave of dread washing over her as she braced for another ally to side with Linda, to see her as the problem rather than the helper. But Carl's reaction defied her fears, a shift that altered the entire dynamic. As he got closer, he noticed Aisha's toolkit and the way she stood her ground despite Linda's hostility, her posture calm but resolute. He'd seen enough entitled customers in his years as a tow truck driver to recognize Linda's tactics. Crossing his arms, he fixed Linda with a hard stare, his voice low but firm. "Ma'am, I saw this lady holding a toolkit, ready to help, and you're yelling at her. I'm not here for drama. Either I tow your car or she fixes it. Pick one," he said, his words a direct challenge to Linda's behavior, his fairness a rare but welcome surprise. Carl's perspective, honed by decades of dealing with people on the road, was rooted in practicality. He judged based on actions, not assumptions, a stance that gave Aisha a glimmer of hope. Carl's support was a pivotal moment, a crack in the wall of adversity Aisha had faced all night. She felt a renewed sense of possibility, a belief that fairness might prevail, even in the face of such blatant discrimination. Linda, her confidence shaken, her face contorted with frustration, reluctantly agreed to let Carl tow the car to the nearest gas station. But as Carl began securing the BMW, Linda shot Aisha a glare filled with resentment, her eyes burning with unspoken blame. Aisha met her stare, her own gaze steady, her determination solidifying. She leaned toward Marla, her voice a fierce whisper. "I'm not done here," she said, her words a vow, a commitment to see this through, to ensure Linda faced the consequences of her actions. At the gas station where Carl had towed the BMW, the storm's relentless howl echoed the tension, simmering within the small shelter. Aisha had followed in her truck, her resolve unshaken, her toolkit a symbol of her skill and perseverance. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a stark glow over Linda's furious expression as she stood by her car, arms crossed, her voice sharp with impatience. "Fix the tire now," she ordered Carl, her tone commanding, her entitlement on full display as she expected immediate obedience. But Carl shook his head, his expression unyielding, his experience teaching him to stand firm against such demands. "I tow cars, I don't fix them. You've got a mechanic right here," he said, nodding toward Aisha, his words a quiet but firm pushback, a reminder of the solution Linda had rejected. Linda's face contorted with anger, her eyes flicking to Aisha with a mix of disbelief and contempt, as if the very idea of depending on her was intolerable. But the worsening storm left her with no options. The wind rattled the windows, and she needed to get back on the road before it became impossible. Aisha stepped forward, her presence steady and commanding, her voice calm but resolute. "I'll fix your tire. But first, you owe me an apology," she said, her words a demand for justice, a refusal to let Linda's behavior go unchecked. Linda let out a harsh laugh, her tone dripping with mockery, her pride refusing to bend. "An apology? For what? Having standards?" she scoffed, her words a last-ditch effort to maintain her sense of superiority, to dismiss Aisha as unworthy. Aisha's gaze burned with unwavering strength, her voice cutting through the air with a clarity that demanded attention. "No, for treating me like I'm less than human," she said, her statement a powerful assertion of her worth, a moment that silenced the room with its raw honesty. The gas station fell quiet, the weight of Aisha's words echoing in the air. Carl paused, his hands still on the tow hook, his eyes shifting to Aisha with a quiet admiration. The moment was electric, a culmination of Aisha's resilience in the face of adversity. She felt a surge of empowerment, a realization that she was no longer just enduring the injustice, she was confronting it head-on, demanding the dignity she deserved. Linda, however, stood firm, her arms crossed tighter, her silence a stubborn refusal to acknowledge her wrongdoing, her pride a shield against the truth. Aisha held her ground, her determination a force that Linda couldn't ignore. Then came the revelation that shifted the entire dynamic. Marla, who had been quietly recording, stepped forward, her phone in hand, her voice steady with a hint of triumph. "It's going viral," she said, showing the screen to Aisha, her eyes alight with purpose. The video of Linda's outburst uploaded during the tow had exploded online, gaining thousands of views in minutes. The hashtag highway racism trended, with comments pouring in. "She needs to be held accountable," one user wrote, followed by thousands more, a digital chorus condemning Linda's actions. Linda's face drained of color, her hands trembling as she snatched the phone from Marla, scrolling through the comments with growing panic. This can't be happening," she muttered, her voice shaking, her earlier confidence replaced by a dawning fear of public shame, her reputation unraveling with each new notification. The exposure was a shock, a moment of reckoning that forced Linda to confront the consequences of her behavior, her arrogance giving way to vulnerability. But the true turning point came when Aisha spoke again, her voice calm but carrying an undeniable authority. "You might want to reconsider your attitude," she said, pulling a business card from her pocket and holding it out. "I'm not just a mechanic, I'm the owner of Thompson Auto Solutions, the company your dealership relies on for emergency repairs." Linda's jaw dropped, her eyes widening in disbelief as the reality hit her. Thompson Auto Solutions was a critical supplier for BMW dealerships in Ohio, including the one where Linda had bought her car. Aisha held the authority to blacklist Linda's vehicle, effectively grounding her, a leverage Linda had never imagined. The revelation was a seismic shift, a moment where Aisha's hard-earned success became a tool to challenge the discrimination that had sought to diminish her, a stunning reversal of the dynamic that had defined their encounter. The balance of influence flipped instantly, the scales tipping in Aisha's favor. Linda, her pride shattered, her face a mask of humiliation, stammered out an apology, her voice trembling with reluctant sincerity. I'm sorry," she said, the words forced but real, a begrudging admission of her fault. Aisha nodded, her expression firm, her victory a complex mix of triumph and reflection. As she fixed the tire, her hands moved with the precision of years of expertise, but her mind raced with the weight of the moment. She thought of her mother, who had worked tirelessly to give her a chance at a better life, and of the countless times she'd been underestimated, her skills overlooked because of her race. This moment wasn't just about Linda, it was a validation of her journey, a testament to her resilience, a quiet but profound declaration that she had risen above the barriers meant to hold her back. When she finished, she looked at Linda, her voice steady but firm. "Next time, treat people with respect," she said, her words a lesson etched in the aftermath of her triumph, a reminder that dignity is not a privilege to be granted, but a right to be claimed. With the tire fixed, Linda sped off, her face a mask of shame, the sting of her forced apology still fresh. The viral video Marla had posted exploded online, amassing tens of thousands of views within hours, the hashtag Highway Racism igniting a firestorm of outrage. Social media dubbed Linda Highway Linda, her name now a symbol of the prejudice Aisha had endured, with users commenting, "This kind of behavior has no place in our society." The backlash hit hard and fast, a wave of condemnation that swept through Columbus. By the next morning, Harper Properties, Linda's employer, released a statement. "We are appalled by Ms. Harper's actions. She has been suspended, pending a thorough investigation." The decision was a blow to Linda's career. Clients began pulling out and her polished reputation as a top realtor shattered, leaving her isolated as former colleagues and friends turned away, unwilling to be associated with her tarnished name. Aisha, meanwhile, became a symbol of resilience in the community. The video not only exposed Linda's behavior but also showcased Aisha's unwavering determination, drawing admiration from across Ohio. Customers flocked to Thompson Auto Solutions, her shop buzzing with new faces eager to support her. A retired teacher from Dayton, Mrs. Ellis, brought her sedan in and said, "I drove 2 hours because I saw what you did. You're an inspiration." Aisha's heart swelled with gratitude, the influx of encouragement a stark contrast to the rejection she'd faced on the highway, a wave of affirmation that lifted her spirits. Her once quiet garage now hummed with activity, the sound of tools and laughter filling the air as her business thrived, a testament to her perseverance that turned her hope into a deep sense of accomplishment. Ethan and Marla, who had stood by Aisha through the ordeal, took the lead in amplifying her impact. Ethan rallied locals at his diner, sharing Aisha's story with every customer who walked in, while Marla connected with community organizers to plan a gathering. They called it Respect on the Road, hosting it at a Columbus park with over 200 attendees, mechanics, nurses, and families united by Aisha's example. The event featured a small stage adorned with banners reading, "Unity in Diversity," and Aisha was asked to speak. Stepping up, her voice steady but heavy with emotion, she said, "I've faced racism my whole life, but I've learned that standing up with courage can change hearts. Let's build a community where everyone belongs." The crowd cheered, their applause a powerful validation, a moment that crystallized Aisha's journey. She thought back to the highway, to Linda's venomous words, "People like you don't belong here," and realized how far she'd come. Her accomplishment now a beacon for others, a feeling that filled her with a profound sense of triumph. The event marked a shift for those around Aisha. Ethan, once hesitant to get involved, felt a new sense of responsibility, deciding to host monthly talks at his diner to discuss inclusion, his perspective shifting from bystander to advocate. Marla pushed for anti-racism training at her hospital, her advocacy fueled by Aisha's courage. The gathering concluded with Ethan and Aisha sharing a firm handshake on stage, a symbol of the unity they'd forged, a bond that spoke to the power of standing together. Aisha felt a deep connection to her community, her triumph not just in overcoming Linda's prejudice, but in inspiring others to act. A victory that resonated with every cheer from the crowd. Linda, meanwhile, grappled with the fallout and solitude, her life unraveling in the days that followed. Beyond her suspension, Harper Properties lost major clients and her social circle dwindled. Invitations to galas stopped and her phone fell silent, a stark contrast to her once buzzy life. One evening, as she scrolled through social media, she stumbled upon a post about Aisha's event, the headline reading, "Local Hero Inspires Unity." Seeing Aisha's speech, Linda's hands trembled, a wave of regret washing over her as she recalled her own harsh words on the highway. She whispered to herself, "What have I done?" The question a quiet admission of her fault, the first step in a long journey of self-reflection, a humbling moment that forced her to confront the pain she'd caused, though change would take time. 6 months later, Aisha's life had blossomed in ways she'd never dreamed possible. Thompson Auto Solutions had expanded, relocating to a larger space on Columbus's outskirts, its walls decorated with murals of diverse hands working on engines, a symbol of the inclusivity Aisha championed. She hired 3 new mechanics, including 2 young black women, and launched a mentorship program for aspiring black mechanics. During one workshop, she shared a story from her early days. A customer, Mr. Jenkins, had once walked out of her shop, refusing service from a black woman, only to return 2 years later after seeing her shop's glowing reviews. He apologized with tears in his eyes, Aisha told her mentees, and said I'd changed his mind about what a mechanic could be. Her voice carried the weight of experience, her eyes alight with purpose as she encouraged her students to persevere, her satisfaction in mentoring them a testament to her growth, a foundation for the legacy she was building. The Respect on the Road event had sparked a broader movement, leading to the creation of Columbus Against Racism, a citywide initiative that partnered with local businesses to implement anti-bias training. Aisha's shop became a hub for these efforts, hosting monthly gatherings where residents shared their stories. At one meeting, a white bakery owner named Sarah spoke up. I used to think I treated everyone equally, but Aisha's story showed me I've been blind to my own biases, like favoring certain customers without realizing it. Her admission, inspired by Aisha's influence, fostered a deeper dialogue, a new perspective that highlighted how Aisha's stand had reshaped the community's understanding of fairness. Aisha felt a quiet fulfillment, her role in this movement a source of deep contentment, a realization that her actions on the highway had ignited lasting change. Linda's path, however, was one of reckoning and slow transformation. After her termination from Harper Properties, her career in real estate came to a halt, her name too toxic for the industry. Socially, she was a pariah. Her calendar, once full, now sat empty, a stark reminder of her fall. A former colleague suggested a diversity training program, and Linda, with nowhere else to turn, enrolled in the 6-month course. During a session, she broke down, her voice trembling as she confessed, I hurt someone because I didn't see her as equal. I was wrong. The admission marked a turning point, a moment of vulnerability that began her journey to unlearn her biases. Though it was a gradual process filled with setbacks, she never met Aisha again, but the lesson of that night lingered, a reminder that her actions had consequences. A humbling experience that forced her to face her own flaws, a perspective that added depth to her character's arc. Aisha, reflecting on her journey, found a profound sense of closure. She often thought back to the highway, to the sting of Linda's words, the weight of years of prejudice she'd carried since childhood. Moments like being doubted by customers, whispered about by neighbors, all the way back to teaching herself mechanics in a cramped garage. Now, as she locked up her shop one evening, Kiana, a 16-year-old mentee, stayed behind to say, "You make me believe I can do this too." Aisha's eyes welled up, the girl's words echoing her mother's encouragement from years ago. She realized she'd not only overcome the pain of that night, but had turned it into a legacy of empowerment, a closure that brought her a deep, abiding peace, a feeling that she'd honored her past by building a brighter future for others. The story ended with a call to action designed to engage the audience emotionally. Have you ever faced racism or witnessed kindness in the face of hate? Share your story in the comments below. If you believe in justice and unity, hit that like button, subscribe, and type respect with where you're watching from. Let's keep building a better world together. The prompt invited viewers to reflect, reinforcing the story's message of respect and unity, a fitting close to Aisha's transformative journey.